and welcome to this video on how to get a 9 in maths at GCSE. So as you're probably aware, this year is the second year of doing the 1 to 9 grading in maths, English literature and English language. Just to quickly go over everything, I did my GCSEs last year, so I could only do the 1 to 9 in maths, English literature and English language. And luckily I somehow got a 9 in all three of those subjects. So if you haven't already seen my video on how to get a 9 in English literature, go watch that, and there's also the video on how, or the flashcards that got me a 9 in English literature. So I did the AQA maths exam for GCSE and I got a 9 in maths. I quite like maths as a subject anyway, so I found it quite easy to revise for. I wasn't like going through quite a lot. It was also the subject that I probably revised the least. I definitely revised for English the most just because I was quite worried about it. It was quite a lot to memorise and I was afraid that I was going to mess that up. But in maths I found it a little bit easier because I already knew it, and in the past I've gone over quite a few questions. So if you haven't already, I would definitely recommend you go over just like the sub-chapters if you try and go over like the tests for those, because they're really useful just to refine your skills in each of the different chapters. Also try and look at the specification and just go through that and see what you already know and what you don't know, and maybe go through like a red, amber and green colour code so you can highlight stuff in red that you're not too sure about and that you're quite unconfident about, and then green the stuff that you're good at, and amber the stuff that you can do on some days. So if you go over that first and you know what to target, you can also then go through and do maybe a past paper to do, and then do the colour coding again to see what you in practice are good and bad at. So yeah, that's a starting ground. And as it's getting quite close to exams, I would say leading up to exams, just do past paper after past paper after past paper. But don't forget to mark them and also go over what you did wrong so you definitely know what you need to improve on and how you can do this. I personally recommend going over it once in one colour, and then when you go back to mark it, my cat's molting everywhere. When you go back to do it in a different colour, for example red, so then you can see where you can almost memorise it a bit better, and you can see the difference between what you did at first and what you need to do next to do better. So yeah, keep doing this again and again and again, and eventually you'll get used to it and you'll start picking up marks in different places. For example, in maths I think there's only so many ways you can write the same question, ask how to do one simple thing. So once you've kind of got the basis of how the past paper goes, then it's a little bit easier to get those top grades. You may also be saying, first year to do these GCSEs, that you don't have an abundance of past papers. And being the first year, we had like 2 specimen papers and they weren't great. So what we did, my teacher gave me all papers from all exam boards from the previous GCSE, because maths is still math. There was only 1 or 2 questions in there which I wouldn't have understood because it wouldn't be on my spec, but the majority of it I already knew and it was on my current spec. So maybe if you go through your teacher and ask, what's the difference between the old GCSE and the new GCSE, so when you come across a question which you're unsure about and it's on the old spec, you don't get freaked out because you don't know how to do it. But I definitely recommend going through all the past papers, even from years which are not the 1 to 9, and also which are not your exam boards. So for example, I was doing AQA, I still went through OCR, Edexcel and the AQA past papers. I just did as much practice as I possibly could. And I did these papers right up until the exam, and I also wrote 1 or 2 flashcards. I didn't really use them on like trig values, doing the sine, cosine and tangent. I had those written out on a card just to recite those quickly. Also my SOHCAHTOA, my cosine rule and my sine rule, I wrote those out on flashcards. I also had some posters dotted around about the circle theorems, and I think that was it, and some angle rules as well. In maths there's not much theory that you need to know behind it. It's very much you need to know the formulas, and once you know your formulas you'll be fine. Also another formula that's very important is your like quadratic formula. So you need to remember that for your exam. That's a very important one to know, especially in the top end of things. You should know it anyway. It's always good to be prepared even if you don't necessarily use it. So one last thing before you go into the exam, make sure you have all your equipment. Make sure you have a protractor, a compass, pencil, pens, and a ruler, and also a rubber. You don't want to go into the exam unprepared, because that would be the worst if you have learned everything and then you go into the exam with the wrong stuff. So that's kind of an overall picture of what I would personally recommend for maths, but the one thing is past papers, even if they're not relevant to your exam board or your year. Just do lots of past papers, because maths is maths, and between exam boards the basics are still there and it's just good to practice. It doesn't really matter, there may be 1 or 2 questions, but that will be it. So that's it for this video. Sorry for it being so short, I think my camera's dying. I hope you enjoyed it and that you have gained some tips on this, on how to approach maths in general. Good luck on your exams, as I am aware they're coming up in the next month or so. And don't forget to watch my other videos on how to get level 9s, they might be useful. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and good luck!